Hey guys, welcome back to more malicious compliance stories. In this video, an awful boss tried to fire me for no reason, but he did not realize that all the patents belong to me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. And the first one is titled, Boss said your severance pay is $1. So quick disclaimer, this happened in a country in East Asia, not the United States. A lot of people were asking about this in the comments, so I edited the post to clarify this in advance. I noticed at work that the older I seemed to get, the less I was taken seriously by the younger people coming into the company, especially in a management position. I spent decades working as a software engineer, and that job comes with a lot of young people coming in thinking that age is a factor. They assume that since I'm older, it means that I don't know how to use or understand modern technology. That is far from the actual case though, and I think that because I've seen things from when software was much simpler and watched it evolve as I worked, it makes me the best person in my position. That never stopped younger guys from asking if I knew how to open an email or make comments about why I was still working there because I probably could not even turn on a computer anymore. That was more how new people in management seemed to see me though, because the people that I worked with on a daily basis were very different. They all seemed to respect me, and I was the person they would come to for help or advice when it came to their work. Since I was older, I tended to shy away from the politics of the office and instead focused on my work and my dream. I wanted from the beginning to do something so big that it would leave a huge impact on the entire industry. It's a hefty dream, but I figured that a big dream can keep me motivated to continue moving along. That hard work and dedication actually ended up paying off a lot over the years, and I had developed several pieces of software that were both being sold by the company but also stuff that we were personally using to get a leg up. You might ask why management has kept me around for so long, and it was because when I signed my contract, I made sure to bring a lawyer, and I had some very big things put into it. For one, it was not a type of contract that expired, so unless the company dissolved, I decided to leave or they fired me for valid reasons, they could not do anything about me. There was a second and much more important reason, that my contract had them keep me on staff despite the fact that they thought I was too old. I had it written in my contract due to a loophole that my lawyer found that any software I developed for the company would be patented in my name and not theirs. If they wanted the patent for my software, they would have to try and buy it from me as a separate payment from my salary. But if I was working for them, they of course had the right to use any patents that were in my name. Because of this, they were not gonna buy anything from me until I decided it was time to retire. I was not using this as some scheme to get a ton of money after my retirement. I would have sold them the patents at a very fair price. With me holding the patent though, it meant that I could make adjustments to my programs and use them as a stepping stone to what I hoped would be a big breakthrough. I was planning on retiring in another 5 years or so. Instead, there was a big change in the office that caused everything to explode like a powder keg. A new CEO had taken over the company, and she made it a point to make it clear to everybody that she meant business. She did not handle things the way a good CEO did though, and instead started threatening people's jobs in order to cut costs. She wanted things to be cheap and focused on short-term bursts of profit instead of long-term gain like the last CEO did. She called everybody lazy and flat out ignored long-term projects, throwing some of them completely out. She was not lying about firing people, and she was not shy to let me know the first day she saw me that my days at the company were numbered. That was the only thing she said until I was called into a meeting about my termination. She went on about how I was far too old to be working at the company and was not making them any money since I was attached to mostly long-term research and projects. She did not care what I had done for the company, how long I had been there, or what my contract said in it. She told me that with all the new modernization that was gonna happen, I would just slow things down and the company was no longer a good fit for me. Legally, she was allowed to fire me if she was downsizing the company and doing mass layoffs. The part that really struck a nerve with me was the fact that she told me she was gonna be generous and give me a severance package. Now, company rules say she has to do that, but does not say anything about the amount, I guess. She cut me a check for $1 and acted as if I should be grateful. I knew that I was gonna get the last laugh anyway, so I accepted the dollar and wished her the best of luck with the company. She was clearly not up to date or would have known that I owed the patents, and by throwing me out of the company, she was throwing out my software as well. From what I heard, I guess she learned quickly that she could no longer use my software without paying a premium price to use it. I was never gonna sell it to a Karen like her, even if she asked for it. She decided to go with things off the shelf that were worse than what I was giving to the company, and basically going for the cheapest option. I had one of the people still working there tell me that everything got stalled and clients were not getting what they paid for on time and even dropping out. For fun, I went and checked the company stocks to find that those were also going down. A competitor got into contact with me knowing that I had the patents and the old company was having a major crisis. They offered me a deal because they wanted to get their hands on my patented software as well. They told me that I could have my own research team to do basically whatever I wanted with, as long as the company was allowed to use my software throughout the entire company. I agreed, knowing that having an entire team working for me meant that I could develop bigger and even better things than just on my own. The other plus side was working for them meant that I was getting information and a front row seat for what was happening at my old company and with Karen. I found out that Karen was getting sued by multiple clients because she was not able to get anything delivered as promised. My new company was getting clients coming in and saying that they came from Karen's company but left since what they got was a disaster. I even saw some of what she did manage to deliver, and it was absolute garbage. I spent my first few months teaching everybody there how to use my programs, and once they had it down, there was no stopping my new company from just shooting up in sales and profits. Karen did not want to go down without a fight though, and of course once she found out that I was now with another company and took my patents with me, she tried to fight about it. She took me all the way to court, claiming that I had stolen company secrets and given them to the competition. Basically trying to claim that she was running a business into the ground because I took my technology with me. Her argument boiled down to claiming that since I created the work while working at her company, she had the right to it, and that the patent should be transferred to her and I should not have been allowed to take it or use that knowledge at another job. She was basically trying to say that I was going against my contract, but I had a copy of it when I went to court. I showed where it said that I would maintain rights to the patents unless I otherwise sold them to a company, and it changed hands. Then Karen started to say that my severance pay was meant to include the purchasing of the patents, and I took them anyway. Well, I never actually deposited the check she gave me, mainly because it was too funny to me and a great talking point, so I just kept it in my house. I brought that to court as well and showed them the dollar that she gave me after I worked decades for the company. I could see that they were trying not to laugh and said that even if they would believe I sold all my software for $1, there was no actual exchange of money since I never put it into the bank, and since the patents were never signed into her name. She left furious, and I was having way too much fun watching her ruin a company that had been doing so well for decades. I did not know a person could be CEO and have this level of incompetence when it came to running something. Karen ended up having the company go fully bankrupt right around the same time the entire board of the company decided to fire her, which I find redundant, but I guess it's humiliating too. I also assume that her finding another job running a company will never happen again once people do a background check and see that in less than a year she made a successful company go totally broke and fall apart. They might never know the whole story since I never really told it like this until now. Meanwhile, I was finally getting some recognition for people in management at my new job for my creations. I worked there for a few years before selling my patents and enjoying a nice retirement. I'm very happy that since the check was too old to deposit anyway, I was allowed to keep it, and I even got it framed in my house, as a sign to value employees and not judge them based on something like age. If she had looked past that and say how much of a value I was then, that company probably would have stayed alive instead of sinking because of this Karen. And the next one is an insane business malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoy the malicious compliance stories, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and post some star emojis in the comments to show your support. Thank you so much in advance. So a few months ago, a new business investor at work came on board as a manager, and he has been an absolute hard ass. He is cracking down on anything he considers to be a waste of time, and he is unforgiving. After a week of watching us work, he and the other managers held a company-wide meeting to iron out some wrinkles in the company that he observed since he started. It was not an open dialogue though, and in fact it's that one of the things he wanted to wrinkle out, it was essentially just 20 minutes of "it's our way or the highway, deal with it." The line "if we want your input we will ask for it, period" really stuck with me though, and it was made abundantly clear afterwards that it was directed at me. The company has had a big problem recently with employee turnover, and I was in the position to know why, since I interact with everyone through my role. Essentially, people are quitting because the work they were doing was not what they signed up to do. The phrase, "if I knew that this is what I would be doing, I wouldn't have accepted the job," was a common sentiment here. They accepted the job under the impression that they would be serving customers, answering emails and phone calls, just general customer service stuff, but instead they spent about 90% of their time in a hot warehouse packing online orders over and over again. I of course shared that with management. I let them know what the people leaving were saying in case they wanted to take that into account moving forward. They just thanked me though, and I left. But the new manager hated that so much that he decided to make a meeting about giving them unsolicited advice. They spoke with me privately afterwards and referred back to when I told them about what the quitting employees said, and they told me that the way they interpreted that was that I was implying that they were being deceitful when hiring people. I told them no, I don't think that at all, I was just relaying what those people were saying about how they felt. They did not care though. They doubled down and said again, "If we want your input, we will ask for it, period." That is how I knew it was directed at me. I asked them for clarification, like what constitutes advice or input, and the new boss said, "Unless you are asking us a question about the work you're supposed to be doing, we don't want to hear it. We don't want your opinion on how you think we should handle situations. We don't want your ideas on how you think the business can be better to run. And we don't want gossip about what other people are saying about us. Just focus on your job." Well, fine then. I will roll with that, no problem. I've worked for them for years and they always appreciated my ideas, opinions and input until that point. But hey, if they don't want my input anymore, that is their choice and I will respect that. I knew it was just a new boss saying that stuff since this sort of attitude with them only started when he did. But the others either agreed with him or were too intimidated to disagree. Either way though, whatever, I will comply with their request. Since then, the problem has not been fixed. We've had 2 more people come and go, both of them because they did not sign up for this. What a shocker. So a third one started about 5 weeks ago and he has taken his frustration in a different direction. I have overheard him complaining over and over again to other people about how he did not sign on to stand around in a hot warehouse for hours packing online orders, but instead of quitting like everyone else, he just got angrier and angrier. And then he hulked out. I was upstairs at my desk when I started to hear smashing. I went down to the warehouse to see what was going on, and this guy was taking customers' packages and smashing them out of frustration. A few others in the warehouse gathered and just watched in amusement. It was like something out of a cartoon. The new boss heard the commotion and came down. Long story short, the guy was fired and I was asked if I knew why he flipped out. I said, "I don't know what happened exactly to cause him to flip out, but I know that for weeks he's been complaining about not signing up to work in a hot warehouse for hours. Maybe he just reached a tipping point about it, not sure." And he said, "Well, why didn't you tell us?" So of course I said, "Because last time I told you that employees were complaining about that, you accused me of implying that you were being deceitful when hiring them. And then you told me to stop gossiping." We had to eat crow a bit on that. And by the way, I've never heard that expression before, but anyway, which was just so damn delicious to witness. But I was also reprimanded for taking the request too literally, and he accused me of being petty. Whatever though, I don't care because I had to adjust the stock levels for the goods that had to be replaced, and they lost about $10,000 in the rampage. Some of the items that were smashed were worth $2,000 each. Learning that made the whole thing worthwhile. Perhaps enjoying that does make me petty. And the next one is titled, "Man Burns His Lawn, Accuses Me of Negligence." Posted on r/Ripestories by user ilking3468. I used to work at the Mart of Waltz in the Lawn and Garden Center. We often got entitled Karens in claiming they knew what was best for their garden, though anyone worth half their salt would leave and then come back later, usually the next day, hoping I would not recognize them and take my suggestions from the previous day, still with their haughty attitude. Now, for me, I've worked as a handyman, landscaper, florist, and still have a major hobby in all types of plants. I've got a thumb so green that I could revive most plants from bad owners, but I would not be commenting here if that were it. Oh no, we had one guy in that got in my face screaming that it was his lawn and he was the only one that knew what would work best for it. Even after going over the different types of grass and the best form of care for them. Some are really easy and others are really sensitive. Well then, I politely bow and load him up with the fertilizer he asked for, an exceedingly aggressive, non-natural blend that would burn most or not all types of grass as he had demanded. Cut to a week later and he's back in, pissed off that I supposedly killed his fresh new sod. Mind you though, with sod you're supposed to keep it watered almost constantly, that's it, no fertilizer, no mowing, etc., not until it takes root at least. And even then, most of the companies will recommend gentle, natural fert like coffee grounds, etc., not the harsh factory-made fertilizer he had thrown on there. I explained this and also explained that he had bought enough to cover 10 acres with the intended coverage, and his lawn by the pictures he had shown too proved that I'd killed it. His lawn was maybe 2 to 3 acres. So in short, he had burned his lawn, not the actual term, but it's descriptive enough for most people to understand, so that is what we used in the store when talking to customers. And yeah, thank you very much for sharing this interesting funny story, and Ripestars, if you have any stories to share of your own, you can either post them in the comments where they are a little bit difficult to read if they are longer, but if you have a long story, I would suggest you head over to r/Ripestories on Reddit, where you can post your own stories, and there's a good chance that I will read them in a video. Thank you so much. The next one is titled Entitled Karen Skips the Line. And need to know detail beforehand, it was really hot. It was about 35 degrees Celsius, but it felt like 44. Important detail for later, so I was standing in line at the checkout at my local supermarket. I think in total I had about 10 items, some frozen goods, drinks and snacks as well. I usually tend to take out one of my earbuds of my phone, so in case someone addresses me, I would hear it. At this time, the woman at the cash register was taking care of the payment of one client, and there was one person in front of me. Then suddenly she appeared, the entitled mom in this story. Now honestly, she didn't look like it, she didn't even give off a mean vibe or anything, even the way she started talking to me was overall nice and polite at first. Excuse me, do you mind if I skip ahead? I'm in a hurry. Now, in general, if somebody politely asks me this and I don't have any urgent business of my own, I usually don't mind. This time, however, I did not have that many groceries, so her delay would be at most a few minutes. While she was pushing a fully loaded shopping cart in front of her, so if I would have her let her skip, I would probably be still in the store for another 10 or 20 minutes. So then I politely declined and tell her that I will hurry as much as I can. Of course, this was a great offense to her. I had not given this woman her entitlement. She blew up instantly, yelling and screaming at me that she was in a hurry and, not kidding here, had to be home in time for her shows. Now, at this time, I would like to point out that during this rant, she only said she had to be home in time for shows and that they were very important to her. There was nothing else making this urgent for her. This is important a bit later. Now, while this woman was going off, the person at the cash register went into ignore mode and just started scanning my groceries, which I loaded into a bag while the EM was going on about how I was garbage and they should ban me from the store. Now, this should have been the end of it, just turn around and go home and forget this happened, but then she said something that, number 1, made me almost want to kill her, and number 2, made this a postable story. While I was walking away, just about to put the earbud back in, she yells, "If you pass by my car, tell my son he's the reason he has to wait another half an hour for me." Now, I'm not an extremely smart person, but in this moment my brain made some connections quickly. What I realized was this. Number 1, again, it was very hot outside. Number 2, this woman had been in the store for a while, judging by the amount of groceries. And number 3, the entire parking lot of this store had almost no shade. Number 4, it was about 2 PM, so the sun was just over its peak. I rush outside and start running past cars, scanning them for kids inside. Thankfully, one of the first cars I pass has a small child laying in the back seat. This kid is as pale as a ghost, sweating like crazy, and it looked like he was only half conscious. I run back inside, and to my utter astonishment, this Karen is having a conversation with the cashier while she is checking out her groceries. I grab her by the shoulder, spin her around, and yell almost straight to her face that her kid is literally dying in your car. And if you don't do something right now, I'm smashing in your windows and calling the cops. At first she looked at me in complete confusion, probably never been spoken to like that before in her life. Then the realization of what I told her sunk in, and she rushed outside. While she went outside, a man tapped me on the shoulder and asked what had happened exactly. I explained the situation, actually leaving out the bit at the cash register, just saying that I saw the kid in the car and knew that this woman was probably the owner. He went outside, and when I came outside, the entitled mom suddenly rushed me and got in my face saying that I was the reason that she was in the store for so long and her son's current condition was my fault. Before I can even respond, the man that approached me earlier speaks up. Turns out this man was an off-duty cop and had been in the store for a while, and as such knew that the actual delay caused by me could not have caused this. He also said he had already called an ambulance for the kid and the cops for her, and I don't know what happened to the EM, but she completely crashed. She just sat down on the pavement and started shaking her head, not saying much except the occasional sob or "not my fault." As for the ending, everything turned out okay for most parties involved. I stayed a while to give a statement to the cops and my contact info in case it went to court. The kid was okay afterwards, and since his mom got arrested, they called his dad or another male family member, I didn't ask, to accompany him to the hospital. As for the EM, I'm assuming she's gonna have to stand trial for child endangerment, not sure if she will just get a fine or even jail time. And now we have an update to the story, and it reads like this. I was contacted by the police a few days ago, last Friday. I went to the station where they went over my statement, asked if I wanted to add or amend anything I said. I didn't, and they could not really tell me directly what was gonna happen with the mom or the family in general, but said that the standard punishment, when the child is not seriously hurt or dead, is usually a GAS fine. GAS stands for something in Dutch, and it is in English, Municipal Administrative Sanction. I think it's kind of sad something bad has to happen before serious punishment is handed out. I don't know what the amount of the fine will be, but as for me, it could not be high enough. I haven't seen any of those people in the store or in the area in general, but also I don't know if they live near here or were just passing by the store by coincidence. Or maybe they are just avoiding the store, that's also possible. That will probably be the end of this tale. I know many of you hoped for something worse for the mom, but sadly, life is not fair, but at least the child lived, and let's hope the mom learned a lesson. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.